the streets of Soho in the rain. He was looking for a place called Lee Ho Fooks. Gonna get a big dish of beef chow mein. Ah, woo, werewolves of London. Ah, woo, ah, woo, werewolves of London. Ah, woo. You hear him howling around your kitchen door. Better not let him in. Little old lady got mutilated late last night. Werewolves of London again. Ah, woo, werewolves of London. Ah, woo, ah, woo, werewolves of London. Ah, woo. He's the hairy-headed gent that run a mucking camp. Lately he's been overheard in Mayfair. You better stay away from him. He'll rip your lungs out, Jim. I'd like to meet his tailor. Ah, woo, werewolves of London. Ah, woo, ah, woo, werewolves of London. Ah, woo. Well, I saw Lon Chaney walk with the Queen, doing the werewolves of London. I saw Lon Chaney Jr. walking with the Queen, doing the werewolves of London. I saw a werewolf drinking a pina colada at Trader Vic's, and his hair was perfect. Ah, woo, werewolves of London. Ah, woo. Werewolves of London. Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Christopher's going to be teaching you Awoo, Werewolves of London. So a really fun song, a song that I've loved since I was a kid, and it's an interesting song. Let's talk about it for a second. It is a three-chord song. Three-chord song that happens over 2 bars. So mixing up my numbers there for a second. But it's literally just G to F that happens over the first bar and then goes to C for the second bar. And that's the whole song. It's just those 2 bars repeated over and over and over the entire way through. Now, what's interesting about this is that oftentimes when we approach a song like this, especially those of us who like to sing and strum, we usually approach it doing something very simplistic in our playing, kind of like right, just a very simplistic strum pattern, something that sounds similar to that. Now, the problem that occurs is that if every song that we pick up and we tackle is being played like that, then it tends to be really boring after a while. Now, if you compare and contrast what I just played to what Christopher did in the beginning, it's a world of difference. He has some really cool strum patterns that are happening. He's got some very interesting chord voicings. That brings up a good question. What does that mean? What is a chord voicing? Well, if you play a C chord here, everyone that's a day one beginner, this is pretty much where you start. This is not the only place that you can play a C major chord on the neck. You can also play one up here. And this is really interesting because this chord shape, we all know, it's the G chord. But when you move it up the neck to 7-8-7, it becomes a higher voicing of a C major chord. Now, if that blew your mind, check out this lesson. This lesson teaches the caged method. This is a method that guitarists have used forever, and it's wonderful. It is equally applicable for the ukulele. So check that one out, and you can learn how to break away from playing chords only here in the beginning of the neck. You get to learn how to move shapes up the neck until they become other chords. Super duper useful. And that's what this arrangement's all about. It's about using not just your typical simplistic strum patterns, not your typical basic cowboy chords. That's what we used to call it in music college. It really takes you to that next level in your strumming and rhythm playing. So a lot of fun with this arrangement. Now with that said, Christopher is going to be teaching you how to play the entire song in this video. But if you want to get the tabs and the chord and the lyric sheet to follow along with, you can do so by clicking this link right here or going to the site rockclass101.com and doing a search for Werewolves of London. I love that name. Now also on that page will be the interactive on-screen tab viewer. So this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Christopher to teach you how to play this tune, and then I'll see you at the end of the video.
Hello friends, this is Christopher Davis-Shannon with Rock Class 101, and today I'm going to be teaching you Warren Zevon's Werewolves of London. This is a tune that is in fact only 3 chords over the space of 2 bars repeated throughout the entire tune. So what I've done is really broken this into 4 separate sections for you, including trying my best to translate that iconic slide guitar solo to ukulele. Let's get started. The introduction of this song is originally played on piano, and I've transferred those chords over to a little chord melody arrangement on uke. As I mentioned previously, there are only 3 chords in this song, G, F, and C, but we're going to have to play a lot of different variations of them to get the sound that we really want. So let me first show you the 2 chord voicings we're going to use in the first measure, and then we'll talk about rhythmically how we put this together. The first chord, although it is a G, we're going to play a G13th chord because we have an E in the melody. So you're going to leave your G string open, bar your first finger on the 5th fret across the C, E, and A strings. Your ring finger is going to go on the 7th fret of your E string, and your pinky directly next to it on the 7th fret of your A string, giving us a sound that sounds like this. There's a G13th chord. And for our first down strum, we're going to play that, and then we're going to come up, but as we come up on this up strum, we're going to lift up the pinky, which is going to give us a D that's already barred on the 5th fret of our A string, making this effectively a G7th on the 2nd 8th note. So it's going to sound a little bit something like this. This is just the first beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. And as we go down, we're going to go to an F chord now, but again, this is going to be an F6th chord because we have a D in the melody. An F6th chord, we're just going to bar directly across the 5th fret. So remember, we already had that partial bar. We can just bring it right on over. It's this small movement to get to an F6th chord. And we're going to strum down all the way through on this. And then for the 2nd 8th note of the 3rd beat, we're going to do a partial strum because our melody note here is a C, which is already on the 5th fret of our G string. So we're going to come down with a partial strum on the 2nd 8th note. Just bouncing off of our G string, you'll likely hit the C string, maybe even the E string. We just want to make sure that we don't follow through all the way to the A string, as that D will overpower the C that we want to hear. So let's talk now about the rhythm that we're going to use in this measure. The hits are on 1 end and then 3 end. So if we put that in context, it's going to sound a little bit something like this rhythmically. 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. All right, so on each of these 8th notes, we're going to be changing just a little bit of the chord, right? We're going from a G13th to a G7th, and then an F6th, really to just like an F5 is sort of what we're playing on that 2nd 8th note. So here's what the first measure sounds like. 2, 3, 4. Let's try that together, just the first measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, one thing you'll note is to capture this G, we're doing 2 down strums on the 8th note. So your strumming pattern is going to be just a little bit different over top of the 2 chords, and that might take a little bit of getting used to. Now let's look at the second measure of this. This is all a C chord, but again, because of where our melody sits in this chord melody, it's actually going to be a C6th chord, which is nice, because that means that all of our strings are open. But what we're going to do here to eke out the melody is more of those partial strums, or just hitting the G and C strings. Our first 2 strums are going to be down strums just on the G and C. And then our third one, we're going to strum all the way down. So we have the A string in the melody. And then we come back and do another partial strum, just bouncing off the G and C string. So here are our first 2 beats of the C major bar, utilizing a C6th chord. Let's try that together, just the first 2 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Now, we're going to go and play some individual notes on this. It would generally be an octave jump on the piano part, but we just don't have those notes on here. So we're doing something a little bit different. On the end of 3, we're going to pluck our C string, and then we're immediately going to hammer on a D on the 2nd fret of our C string, and then play our open G string. So here's what it sounds like. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Here's what the measure sounds like when we play it. And note that this is all down strums, just partial down strums for many of them, over this C major chord. 2, 3, 4. And then we just have that little lick on the end. Let's try that together, nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's put together those first 2 measures. It's going to sound a little bit something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try that together now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very good. Now that's the entire intro. We're just going to repeat this section 4 times. And you might find that actually the hardest part is getting back to that G13th chord that we have at the beginning of the measure. And what you want to do is focus on taking the time after we hit this open G string. You have half a beat to slide up here. We're not doing anything with our fingers down here. So take that open string on the end of 4 to slide back up to the G13th chord at the same time. So let's try this together. The entire intro, the form we just worked on, 4 times through. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in this song, that piano part vamps over top of the entire song. It goes on throughout every single section. So what I've done for the verse, to give us just a little change, is write up very close to what the guitar part is playing, which integrates a little bit of what we just did melodically, but in a different way. So we're going to be playing now all straight 8th notes. We're just going to go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up for this first measure. And we're going to do that 2 beats on a G chord, and then 2 beats on an F chord, so 4 strums total on each. But we're going to add just a little bit of movement. We're in fact going to start out on a G6th chord, open, 2, and use your 1st and 2nd finger for this, because we're going to need our ring finger in one moment. Our first down strum is going to be on that G6th, and then with our up strum, we're putting our ring finger down, making this regular old G major chord that we've played a million times before, and strumming through for the rest. Now you see it, this is really kind of the same movement that we were doing from the G13th, right? We're adding an E in here, and then getting rid of the E and making it a regular G on the 2nd half beat. So here's what the G6th to G bar sounds like. And then we're gonna go on to an F major chord. We're gonna put down our regular old F major chord, but what I want you to do is use your middle finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, open C, and then F on the 1st fret of our E string, and then use your pinky up top to play the C on the 3rd fret of your A string. The reason we're going to do this is, again, for the first down strum, we're going to integrate a little bit of this melody. If you recall back to that F6th chord we played previously, we're going to add a D to it, but now we're going to put the D on the 2nd fret of our C string with our ring finger, making 2, 2, 1, 3. which you'll note is the same as a D minor 7th chord, but we're functioning here as an F 6th chord. And much like with the G6 to the G, we're just going to play that for the first down strum and then pick it up and have a regular old F, so it'll sound like this. So let's put together the G6th to the F 6th chords. It's going to sound a little bit something like this. 2, 3, 4. Here, just that little slight movement on the end of 1 and the end of 3, the same spaces rhythmically that we were moving in the intro section. So let's try this together, starting on the G6th chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. And then we're moving on. As we said, we're going to a C major chord, and this time we are in fact just going to the C major chord that you likely already know. Open, 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 3, and keep your pinky right where it is, as it was already on that C for the F chord. Now let's look at the rhythm that's happening in this C major bar. You can see it, this strumming pattern here is actually very close to what we call the island strum, except in this case we're not going to swing the eighth notes. They will be straight. So it'll be 1 and 2 and 4 and. Let's clap that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 4 and. Good. And now we're just going to add a little bit of movement on this as well to highlight some things that happen in the piano part. So our first down up strum is going to be just a C major chord. On our second down strum, we're going to put down our middle finger on the 2nd fret of our G string, adding an A, much as we did in the intro, except we were using our open A before. We're just going to have it there for half a beat, lift it up directly for that up strum. Then we hold out that C, we come back in with another up strum, and then on the next down strum on beat 4, we're going to put down our middle finger on the 2nd fret of our C string, giving us a C over top of D, meaning D is now our lowest note. And then again, we're going to lift that up for the last up strum. So here's what this C major bar sounds like. 2, 3, 4. Just hear those slight movements in there. Let's try the C major bar together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Now let's listen to what these two measures together sound like for the verse. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try that much together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, and much like the intro, this section just repeats 4 times for 8 total bars. So let's try putting this all together and play an entire verse. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, as we look at the chorus of this tune, what we're really doing is just mashing up the intro and the verse. So we're taking that piano part that we've already played and just adding a little more rhythm to this to propel the momentum instead of having those longer sustained spaces. So as we look at this, we're going to start again on our G13th chord, much as we did in the beginning, and then with an up strum going to our G7th, the same as the intro. What's different here is that on the and of 2, we're going to add an additional up strum to this over top of that G7th chord. Just an extra one there to propel the momentum a little bit more. And then we're going to get down to an F6th chord, but we're going to use a slightly different voicing this time. We're going to put down our regular F major chord, 2 open, 1 open, and place our pinky on the D on the 6th on our A string. So that's the 5th fret of your A string. And we're going to strum that, and then on the up strum, come down to our regular old F major chord with the C up top as we played before. And likewise with the rhythm, we're going to play again on the and of 4, getting us an extra half beat in here. So here's the rhythm of this entire measure before we put together these movements. So it's going to sound like this: 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right, let's try clapping that together because we're adding these 2 extra eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Good. Now let's listen to how this sounds with the chords. So it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's try that first measure together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Now we're going to put this together. If we look at this C major bar, it's exactly the same as what we just played in the verse section. We have those movements to the C sixth and then the C over D. So let me play this one time just to refresh your memory of how this sounds. 2, 3, 4. All right, now let's listen to those two measures together that really put together the entire chorus of the tune. 2, 3, 4. Let's try that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very good. Now let's put this all together. So much like we've done previously, it's going to be 4 times through, or 8 full measures of this pattern to complete the chorus. 1, 2, 3, 4. So once we get out of the first chorus, we go directly back to the verse section, identical to as we played, and then another chorus. But coming out of this second chorus, we go into the guitar solo. Now this is typically played on slide guitar, an electric guitar, but we can't really comp a rhythm part and play slide at the same time and make this work. So I've arranged a little chord melody version of this for you. We'll be starting out on a G5 chord, open, 2, 3, and then we're going to mute the A string. I put my pinky on the 3rd fret of the A string, just very lightly, so that when I strum through, we don't have any noise on that. We're going to play first 4 eighth notes, 1 and 2 and. And on the 3rd eighth note here, we're going to lift up that pinky so that we have an open A string, and then put it directly back down to mute the A again, and go back to the G as the melody note. So the first few notes over top of our G5 chord will sound like this. Let's try that together, just those first few notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, and then we're going to resolve that, put the pinky down, it's already on the 3rd fret, and back to our F major chord. 2, open, 1, 3. And we're going to strum that, let it ring for 1 beat, and then strum again, straight through that, 2 strums on the F, and then we'll lift up our bottom fingers and strum just the open G and C strings on the and of 4, our last 8th note. So let's listen to the F major chord, what's happening over top of this. All right, let's listen to the whole bar now. 2, 3, 4. Let's try that together, the first bar of the solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, and now we're moving on. And again, the chord progression is the same as the rest of the song. So we're back to a C major chord here. Leave your pinky where it is, but lift up the pressure, so we're again muting the A string. So we just have G, C, and A ringing out. And we're going to do a down-up strum over top of that. And then on beat 2, put down your ring finger on the 3rd fret of your E string, making this a C5 chord really again. So we're just playing C's and G's. We're going to strum down twice on that on quarter notes. Lift it back up. And then on our up strum, on the and of 4, we're going to put it right back down on that G. So we're just going back and forth really between E and G in our melody here. Now the one thing to watch for is this rhythm on beat 4. We have 16th notes. So let me clap this entire measure of C for you. It's going to sound like this. 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4, and up. Now that and, those quick ones on the end, what we're going to do is put down the G on the 3rd fret of our E, as we spoke about before, but then just pull it off. We're not going to actually strum fast to make this work. So here's what our C major bar sounds like. So you can hear just that slight movement with the pull off. Let's try the C major bar together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Now let's try the first 2 bars of the solo together. 1, 2, 3, 4. And coming out of this C major chord, we're going right back to that same G5 voicing, and we're going to strum that once with the muted note, and then lift up our pinky on beat 2, strum again, so we have the open A. And then just put down our F major chord, and we're going to do now 4 down and up strums over 8th notes, 3 and 4 and. So we're going to do 2 on our regular F major chord, and then for the second one, we'll make this an F6, the same one we used in the chorus by sliding our pinky up to the 5th fret of the A string. So here's what our next measure sounds like starting on that G5. It's a pretty simple movement. Let's try that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. And then the next measure, we're resolving again to a C major chord, but this is a different voicing. Slide that pinky on up to the 7th fret of your A string on that E. So that's a C major chord. We're going to do a down, up strum on here. And then on beat 2, we're going to bring our thumb down and pluck our open C string. And as we're doing that, put your first finger on the 3rd fret of your A string, so that on this next up strum, strum a regular old C chord, and then we're going to do another down, up, down, strum, and then come down on the end of 4 and pluck individually our open G string. So very slowly, here's what the 4th measure of the solo sounds like. So it's going to be like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So just watch those open notes that we're playing with our thumb. Let's try that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so let's listen to what these next 2 measures sound like together. 2, 3, 4. Let's try that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Now let's try the first 4 measures of the solo together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now as we start the second half of the solo, we have probably the most rhythmically complex bar of the entire tune, but it's really not too bad. So let's look at the rhythm that's happening here before we put the chords on uke. It's going to sound a little bit something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, a 3 E and 4 and. Let's try that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, a 3 E and 4 and. Right, that's not so bad, but it does fly by fairly fast. So to start this out, we're going to start on our regular old open position G major chord, open 2, 3, 2. For our first 8th note, we'll down strum and then open up our hand and just pluck the G string, much as we did in the previous bar. And as we do that, we're going to slide our first finger up to bar across the C, E, and A strings on the 7th fret, leaving that G still open, and placing our pinky on the 10th fret. This is just giving us a higher voicing of a G major chord. So we strum down on that. And then as we come with our up strum, we're going to make this an F chord, but we're going to keep that G up top with the pinky. So we're just going to slide our first finger down to the 5th fret, but bar it all the way across now. So it'll be 5, 5, 5, 10. And even on a tenor uke, you should be able to reach this voicing. And we're going to go through this. This will be our 16th notes. Those are our fast ones. And then on beat 4, we're going to come down, but on the last up strum, we're going to slide our pinky down to the 8th fret. So it's going to be 5, 5, 5, 8, making this just our regular old barred F major chord. So let's listen to this measure nice and slowly. 2, 3, 4. It's not too bad when we play it slowly, right? The issue is getting it up to tempo. So let's try this nice and slow together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, and then as we move on, we're just going to slide our first finger down to play the 3rd fret of our A string. And this next bar is going to be all eighth notes, so at least we have a nice easy rhythm. So we're going to do down strum on C major, and then as we bring our first finger up, we're going to slide up to the 7th fret, so we can hear that slide a little bit, and then strum down again. And on the up strum, right back down to our C major chord. I want you to use your first finger for all of this. We really want to accentuate the sliding between notes. And then we're going to go right back up on beat 3, up to the 7th fret. So we're really just going back and forth between 3 and 7. And then we're going to slide down to the 5th fret, pluck that individually. I like to just use my first finger as if it were an up strum, the open C string with the thumb. And as we're doing that, slide your ring finger back to the 3rd fret and pluck that note individually. So here are our last 3 notes. So let's listen to this measure with all the sliding over top of the C major. 2, 3, 4. All right, let's try that together, just the C major bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're on the home stretch of the solo. So we're starting out, as I said, on a G sus4 chord. So our ring finger should already be in place on the 3rd fret of the A string. Our middle finger will be right next to it on the 3rd fret of the E string, and then the first finger on the 2nd fret of the C string. So you see, this is just like our G5 chord. We're adding a C to it, that's all. We're going to strum down on this, and then lift up our ring finger for the up strum. And then we're going to put it back down, but we're going to mute it much as we did before, making this our G5 chord. So let's listen to those first 3 notes. All right. And then we're going to, on our next up strum, go to an F major chord, just the same one we've been using this entire tune. So it'll sound like this. Then go up to the F6 that we used in the intro of the tune, straight across the 5th fret. So let's listen to this next to last bar of the solo. Let's try that together, just that next to last bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now the last bar, we're playing a C major chord. We're going to use that variation with the 7th fret of our A string to start. We're down up strum, but on the up strum, we're going to put our middle finger down on the 8th fret. So we're going to create some movement here. And then our pinky on the 10th fret for the down strum. Hold that for an entire beat, and then come right back down to the 7th fret. So it's going to sound like this the first few beats. And then for our last up, down, up, it's just going to be on a regular C major chord. You're going to just slide your first finger down. So here is our entire last bar of the solo. Good. Now let's try this entire solo together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now as we come out of the solo, we're going directly back into the verse pattern 4 times, back to the chorus 4 times, and then back to the verse. But this 4th verse is just a little bit different as far as timing. Instead of playing it 4 times, we're going to play that 2-bar pattern 6 times in the last verse. There's just a few extra lines in there. Then we're finally going to go right on back to the chorus part, and that's where the tune ends. We can just fade this out as it was done in the original recording. I hope you all have enjoyed this lesson.
Alright guys, so this week's lesson was a ton of fun. It's a perfect tune for Halloween, and it's a great study for advancing your rhythm and your strumming skills. Just an absolute blast, and Christopher did a wonderful job on making the arrangement interesting all the way throughout. Now, I do want to remind you that if you want to get the tabs to print off Keep for Your Records plus the lyrics and the chord sheet, you can do so by clicking this link right here or going to the site rockclass101.com and doing a search for Werewolves of London. Now don't forget that on that page is the really cool interactive tab player, so you can hit play, watch that tab scroll across in real time, highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.